Hey, folks. So it's Angelique here from Angelique Guides Infrastructures for Conscious Leadership and Collective Healing. And we are at the end of 2016. Holy Batmobile. I'm so thankful that it's ending. This year has kicked my ass. I mean, on so many spectrums that I feel like there's a whole bunch of fresh skin because everything's been ripped at. And I say that tongue in cheek, but like it's for real, right? So, what does 2017 in the Gregorian calendar look like for you? As a Jew, New Year started a bit ago, right? So, that's one thing. And I like to use this time as catalytic energy because there is a collective mounting energy as the calendar year is shifting. And to me, that's a sweet wave to ride, right? So I figure let me do a small video to talk a little bit about what are you intentionally, if that's even a word, intentionally, wow, and beaconing, here there's another one, for 2017. And one of the things I do as I work with my clients and I work in my workshops and in my body of work and teachings is the idea of looking at ourselves as like the medicine wheel, not a new thing. That's an indigenous tradition and way of movement, right? And so, but for me, that it's a little distinct in that I'm looking at the self, soul, mind, and body. I'm looking at family and home. I'm looking at my work in the world, and then I'm looking at my legacy, my roots, kind of what I'm leaving behind, and that helps me build in a really cohesive way. That's messy, and I wouldn't have it any other way because I understand that we're both like moving in these life cycles and these multidimensional ways, right? And so our consciousness needs to be expanded and have enough capacity to hold for all those dynamics. For example, in your work in the world, which can be anything that you're committed to doing, whether it's like the job at the Turkey Hill, the 9 to 5er that you don't like, that's your bridge to wherever you're going, or it may be the thing that you do that's steady, to the volunteering that you do, to the occasional spoken word that you do. To me, this is all your work in the world and your offering to the world and what you've been brought here to give in that way that is community oriented, right? And impacts community. And so you may be at a different cycle in that. You may be starting a business, you may be starting a new job, you may be starting, an organization. I don't know, right? That can look so distinct. While in your personal life, you will be shifting a cycle. And in your family life, that may be changing. And so all these dynamics are constantly, and I like to think of it as spheres, right? Just kind of moving like this. And our work is to really like pulse it, check it, nourish it, and tend to it to know where it's at and what's happening in those areas of our lives. We're looking for joy, we're looking for pleasure, we're looking for pain, we're looking for longing, we're noticing our body in relationship to these things. And so when you're thinking about 2017, according to the Gregorian calendar, when you're thinking about that and what you want to manifest and what you want to bring and how do you want to be present, there's a scope that I want you to hold, both the micro and the macro, the short term and the long term, is that when you get to the end of your days and your last breath is about to just come out and gurgle out, because that's how that is, what would have meant the most to you? What was worth living for? Now, when you look at that, who's going to be with you there? If you're living to please people, I want you to know that none of the mofos are going to be there at the end of those days, right next to you, loving on you and all that you've brought into their lives. They are going to be doing their own thing, right? So what has been worth it? What is worth it? When you're looking at your work in the world, what's worth it to you? And what's not? And what boundaries do you need to put up? And what ways do you need to open yourself to a different experience or maybe a different narrative? What belief systems are no longer relevant for you, or values, right? Or expressions and how that looks, whether it's a relationship or whether it's a space or whether whatever that is, start pulsing these areas of your life for life. What is life giving? What is not? And when there's things that are not life giving and they can't be removed, so let's say that 9 to 5 that you have to do because you have to pay the light and nobody else is going to pay your light, If we're doing that, then what are the other ways that we can support ourselves with life? What does it look like to acknowledge the present on the way to where we're going? So when you're thinking about 2017, as I have been, I have piles. My stuff is all piled. It's always all piled anyway. It's just a whole bunch of shit all over the place all the time. Um, I'm looking at my calendar. I'm looking at my year. I'm looking at the seasons. I look at spring, winter, fall, summer, and the energy in that. What do I want to create in that? What's most prevalent in that so that I can plan into that space? Always with this understanding and this commitment to flow and for what's happening and what's emerging and what's present. Recognizing that while there's many things that I can be in a place of intention and fully like in control, there's a whole bunch of shit that we can't control. Right? And let's not make believe about that anymore. There's things that you cannot control. What you can do is be present to rise to the occasion. And so when we're talking about our movement and when we're talking about politically, home, family, I want to know what's worth it to you. And I also want to know what lens are you using to move in your own world. You could go do activism work and be all sexy there, while internally you're still holding yourself captive in other ways. And this is the nature of our humanity, in that we're always doing the work and showing up in all these places. I want to know, what does your integration look like? I'm looking at my own damn integration. I'm like, what is working together and moving, and what is stagnant and stuck, and why? Some of those answers come quicker, and others I have to sit with for a minute and think about it and sense into and allow and give myself permission to process, right? But I'm present to the questions, and I want that gift for you as well. How are you being present with that? And you can do your word of the year, words of the year. I have words of the year. Mine this year are erotic, sovereign, and accomplished. And I want to live into that eroticism in my entire expression, life, beingness. I want to feel accomplished and realized in certain things that I've been working toward for a long time. Um, and I want to own the fullness of my sovereignty from this perspective in my life, which is different. I'm single for the first time in 20 years, and my children are grown. And what does that look like for me? And what does sovereignty in that look like? Um, right? And this is just where I'm at. So, how do I want to live into that? Now, you have Danielle Laporte's amazing stuff to tap into if you wanted to. You have Leonie Dawson's stuff is amazing as well and super badass colorful, right? You have all these different planners and expressions. But what's most important is that they're all tools, they're not masters. You must find your own voice and expression and movement, and no longer try to stick yourself in a box, because we need you in full ownership. I need you in full ownership. You need me in full ownership of the light and the shadow. That means you need to know that I don't like getting up super, super early. I actually really dislike it. I think it's sexy, but it's not my cup of tea. And I will also work really hard and tend to be a night owl. Like, these are just things about me, right? Like, this is what it is. This is how I am. This is how I will be. I have my seasons and cycles, and I get to be in my power by owning them and moving with them. So for 2017, what does your commitments look like to yourself, both your soul, your mind, and your body? Where is that at? How's that feeling? What is needed? And what is present? What does that look like for your family and home? And home and family can be whatever you decide that is, but pulse that, right? GPS it. Where are you? And is it nourishing for you? Is it working for you? Is it supporting you? Because as active visionaries, as conscious leaders and healers, this shit matters. It matters. You know, we talk about the quality of food we're eating. We're talking about the quality of environment we live in, all nourishing who we are as people, and important and relevant. Your work in the world, what does that look like? What's present? What's missing? What do you really need to be nourished? And how can you offer yourself cushions of support in that? And what does the legacy look like? What are you leaving behind for those that are coming up behind you? What are you leaving for your loved ones? And I don't mean in monetary or materialistic ways, right? Like, I'm talking about values, I'm talking about roots, I'm talking about ethnic empowerment. As a person of color, as a Jew of color, you know, to me, I don't want my kids to do the work that I've had to do to connect back to my roots, because assimilation and colonization has beaten my people to a pulp that we don't even remember our own names. So I know that my commitment is really strong toward legacy and ethno activism, right? That's like sacred work to me. And that means I have to show up, keeping track of that and seeing how my movement is in that. So taking these like four areas and checking them and looking at your year and breaking it into quarters and looking at what's the energy you want to live into, what's worth it, what matters. And a year from now, will it matter? So all that you may be doing in one area at the sacrifice of some others that may not be relevant or matter down the line. So please, I want you to be in full health and wholeness. And that doesn't mean perfection. And it doesn't mean like you decide what that means for you, but that you're aligned and you're in the fullness of who you are as a person. So I hope this is helpful in your planning. I wish you paths of milk and honey in 2017 and open roads, and that is not contingent or dependent upon other or the climate, politically, like in all those ways, but that inside internally, your beacon, your soul, your essence remains intact and nourished. So I wish you blessings in your planning, and I hope this is helpful. I do have a course coming up next week. It starts the Conscious Women's Leadership Intensive, where we deep dive into these things. Keep posted for my courses. I have some online audios in the shop. I mean, there's different ways you can connect. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, get your name in my email list, and let's rock this together and let's support each other in our movement and in the beauty and the sacredness of what it means to be in this human experience, both the light and the shadow. We cannot disqualify either. We live in both. So thank you so much. I wish you well and I wish you blessings and shalom. Deep, deep shalom. Goodbye.